Hey, Lee Wolf here. Welcome to Game Face Monday. And today, as always, Mr. Richie Bello is sitting by my side, and we have a special guest, and that is Peter Smith, who is a founder and managing partner of Lion Partnership. Peter has over 40 years of experience in the automotive retail sales arena, and he's going to be giving us a bit of an inside look at what Lion Partnership has been doing for the car dealerships around the states here. How you guys doing?
Excellent.
Good. Getting a little chug on my computer here. We have a lot of wind, so if I suddenly disappear, Rich, you're going to have to take the boat. But anyway, before we get rolling on the show, just going to run a quick message from our sponsor, Shop Smart Autos.
Look, you can keep telling your sales staff to make more calls day after day, but trying to sell more vehicles and retain customers with dirty data clogging your DMS and CDP, well, it's like trying to concentrate in a messy office. It's frustrating, chaotic, and let's be honest, a little embarrassing. But now with the SSA VIN retention report, you can clean up your DMS and CDP in no time. It's the ultimate tool to tidy up your data and pinpoint the customers you need to target. Reclaim those lost opportunities, win back the customers you thought were gone, and boost your sales with laser-sharp precision. The SSA VIN retention report helps you focus on the right customers at the right time with the right messages. Don't let dirty data hold you back. Clean it up, win them back, and drive success with the SSA VIN retention report from Shop Smart Autos. Inspect what you expect.
All right. So, sorry, I wasn't clear-minded in the beginning there. My system froze up on me, but I think I'm back online here. So, Peter, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I every single time that I get the opportunity to speak and share knowledge, it's a really real big delight for me. Thank you, and I'm grateful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about, 40 years, that's no small feat. So where you came from, how you got to Lion Partnership.
Sure. So 40 years, two continents, multiple countries. I've worked in every vertical from OEMs through dealers to vendors to being a consultant myself to all three of those, and then being an actual consumer as well. Over my career, I've actually was the number one salesperson in the world for sales, selling over 3,500 cars in 1 year. I understand the marketplace, especially the variable side of it. It is a customer-driven side, much more than even the service, in my opinion, even though that is where sales are retained. However, in my travels, I got out of the business 3 times, and the last one was specifically on a purchase experience that brought me back in. It was so horrific that when I was being interviewed by Automotive News and a couple other trade magazines, I vented that I was going to start Lion Partnership, and it was going to be a collective of automotive lions and have pride amongst what we were doing and what we were going to show and how we're going to make the business customer centric again. And over the last 3 years, we've established that by bringing on a number of vendors, a number of consultants, and now we're actually launching LP Media, which is actually going to drive the right people to the right podcasts, right clubhouse rooms, all the various media outlets, and we're going to do that as just a service because it needs to be done. It really needs to be done because the visibility is bad, and there's like if we take, for example, NADA this year. There was 710 vendors with 190 backlog. So for backups, so that's 900 vendors in the automotive space. The average dealership general manager has silos or departments of anywhere from 8 to 16 different departments. They do not have the time to go find those vendors that are going to assist them in moving the needle forward. They do not. Right now, the only concern with dealerships, and I'll take on the debate anytime anyone wants to have it, is acquisition. All they're doing is acquiring customers. They're not retaining them. They're not concerned with that. All they want to do is continuously fill that hopper.
Right.
It's shown everywhere, and
You're right. You're absolutely right, because we've been running reports, and we have customers, and there's customers out in certain areas that they just spending. They didn't care if it's 1,400, 16, or 18, as long as they have those cars sold. They're not interested in the retention part.
No.
If they retain them, they retain them, and if they don't, conversation that I've had with somebody says, if I retain him, I'm just spending more money and more money. Well, that's good, but in marketing, there's something called diminishing returns.
Yes.
They're hitting diminishing returns in a big way. See, when the market is good, you could be at diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Right? But when that market is getting, the funnel's going, now your diminishing return goes higher and higher, and you got problems, and that diminishing returns is a problem. And let's face it, a GM, based on their pay plan, why would they care? If I'm a GM with that plan, I have a checkbook to just get customers in the door. It's the process like that is bad. Some stores that pay, in different departments, a general manager, now that he's paying attention to what he's spending, he's gonna retain his customers, and he's gonna be all ears. Let's face it, in the car business, what do? Work the pay plans.
Oh, absolutely. And if we look at pay plans in general, pay plans are one of the biggest nemesises in our industry. They create turnover. They don't create culture. Rarely. And what we ask and what we say to people is, what's the scope of work for this pay plan? Well, let's look at the average salesperson now. Dealerships are paying based on activity, meaning that they want you. They believe that activity creates results. So there's dealerships out there that have posted their sales boards, and I know a couple of them that are out there, and they vary anywhere from 50 to 75 phone calls, 50 to 75 text messages, 50 to 75 emails, 10 to 20 social posts, and 10 to 20 videos, and 2 to 4 appointments. That's your daily expected activity as a salesperson. Now, here's the challenge with that. There is a dealership is expecting you to sell 15 units. The average salesperson sells 10, but 15 is the expectation. Now, at 10 sales per salesperson, which is the national average for the last 70 years, and the national average right now for conversion is slightly over 4 hours. So that means to sell 10 cars, you're at 40 hours. If you sold 15, you're at 60 hours. If you convert on the national average, that's anywhere from 3 to 1 to 2 to 1. Your time just on that alone is anywhere from 120 to 160 hours.
Right. And you're too busy on the phone.
Now, how do you have a connection? Never mind a contact, but a connection with someone on the phone if you have to make 75 touch points a day, and then sell those cars. It's an impossibility.
And you said it's not like that up where you are, right? When we were talking
No,
about it.
no, it's in so the U.S. is based on transactional sales. It's all about acquisition. You make as many phone calls. It's a boiler room mentality. You make as many phone calls as you possibly can. Get as many people into the dealership. Get as many people driving a car. And you move them down the sales funnel. And eventually, through the drip method, you're going to drip out 1, 2, 3 units based on a number system. In Canada, we're both countries pay 100% commission on most case scenarios. In Canada, if I ask the salesperson to make a phone call, they tell me to go jump in the lake. We do not, as a whole, most salespeople in Canada do not make sales calls. They won't do it. We do not have BDCs. Yet, we have 2.7 times the amount of franchises the U.S. has per capita. So if you want to talk competition, we have almost 3 times the amount of dealerships. In Toronto, where I'm from, we have, within a 30-minute drive, we have 27 Toyota dealerships. That's more dealerships than LA has.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that blew my mind when you said that the other day. Imagine that, Rich, 27 dealerships within 20 minutes for just Toyota.
Yeah, just Toyota. that alone shows you that you can go down the street and get a car. They're all profitable. How? What? Well, they do the job. They look at relational sales rather than transactional sales. So when you come in, you're treated like a person. You're not treated like a number. You don't come into the service drive and they say, "What's your phone number?" That's automatically treating you like a number. You don't come into the dealership. We know why you're there. You're not there to pick out furniture. You're there to buy a car. No one goes to a dealership without the intention of buying a car. It's the worst thing that they can think of. Nobody wants to go to the, unless you're a Porsche or Ferrari franchise where people just want to come in and look at the beautiful automobiles. But when you're a Toyota or Volvo or something like that, you know that they're not there for that.
Right.
So all you have to do is help them along their journey.
Right.
Don't control them. That's the big misnomer. You got to control that customer.
Right.
Really?
And that's where Lion Partnership goes in. They look at the processes, the vendors, the pay plans,
everything. We do a statistical analysis of everything that you do as a dealership. We provide you with training. We provide you with coaching. We provide you with processes. We have vendors that represent every silo in this business, every single one that is customer centric. We won't deal with someone who's just in it for pure profit, because that's not what retains our businesses. If, as Richie said, diminishing returns, if we just continuously do that, the dealership will be out of business. Right. And there will be nothing for anybody.
And I'm glad you said that. I have a friend named Damon Egan. You probably know him.
Yes, I know the name, yes.
He's been on my show, 2019. Good friend. Real effective, unbelievable. In the United States, you can't even, there's nobody that can compare to him. The guy's been a winner, he's got awards from Ford. It's amazing. Amazing what that guy does. Okay? So I got a few guys in Canada that I've known for years. Another gentleman in Canada, which I'm not okay to say his name because he'll have a problem, but Damon, I could. I mean, he is unbelievable in the sales perspective. And when you go outside of here, of the US, you go to Canada, is good. But when you go to the UK and you meet a GM, they're all went to school for marketing. General managers in the UK all went to school for marketing. You have to pay attention. What's happening in this country, it's scary, but that diminishing return has been happening for a long time. So why is that? and that's why I'm glad to bring you to the show.
So let's just step back for 1 second here, Richie. I worked in the UK for 4 years. I actually was one of the original developers of business development centers in dealerships, where we walked door to door in industrial parks, asking them where they serviced their cars and where they purchased all their trucks from, and we would engage with them on a door to door salesperson. That would never happen in the United States.
No, never. Right.
And as for car sales in the UK, which is very, very unique, they sell cars in the UK 2 months of the year, and then it falls off for the other 10. And that's because the cars over there are sold on the license plate. So the license plate dictates when the car was actually purchased. So it's a status thing. So people look for specific changes in the license plate to see how old the car is. So you could have a car in stock for 3 years, put a new license plate on it, it's a brand new car. Right. It doesn't matter. It's crazy. But with that solution, it becomes a professional. It was a professional position. When I started at the car dealership, the first thing that they did was they gave me an expense account. They gave me a company car. They gave me a company credit card, a gas card, all these things. I'm going, and when do I work? I work Monday to Friday from 9 to 5. And I have a secretary. Like, this was all new to me, but they look at it in a different perspective. You are actually booking an appointment like you're going to the dentist or the doctor to buy a car in Britain. You're not there to waste time. It is a professional industry
environment
where in Canada it's very similar but it's a blend between the US and the UK, where it happens. But it's an amazing factor that we look at in a manner that we have to retain clients. That's the biggest challenge right now. We have to retain clients, because right now the statistics show that 70% of purchasers will never return to the dealership that they bought the car at. Mm-hmm. So you already have a 70% defection rate. 70% of those people that have those cars will not return to a dealership once their warranty is over. And the average lifespan of a car right now is teetering on 13 years, 13.5 years. So if you look at that, look at all the income that is being lost because we're not doing our jobs. We're not treating people the way that they should be treated, because they just spent tens of thousands of dollars. And I was just at the Canadian Auto Show. I looked at a Ford Raptor Bronco. It was $125,000 for a Bronco. A Jeep was $90,000. A Wrangler. Right. I'm going. How do we get to this level when it's and then we expect our people to engage in it? The average price right now in the U.S. for a new car is $59,000. $59,000.
Can't even fathom that.
Yeah, and we're operating on an average interest rate of 7%. What do you think your average monthly payment is? $800. $800. That's a mortgage 5 years ago.
When I was working for a company named the Nicholson Group, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Steve Nicholson.
Yes.
Okay, I was working with them as a junior consultant. Right, he went to the UK. He went to Canada and got together with General Motors of Canada. There was a very successful training consulting company back then. All he did was go there, learn their process, and integrate that with the US, okay? And that company got sold to Reynolds and Reynolds with Dr. John, and I was there and all that. And then Reynolds and Reynolds bought that from Dr. John into the R.O. Polk and Company. And all we did, the only thing we did was treat people back then like the Canadian side. That's it. He sold it to Reynolds and Reynolds, and then they sold it to the Polk Company, right? It was called Polk Professional Services. It was a training company, and all we did was pick that up from Canada. In this country, okay, it's a whole different thing. Why is it different? I tell you why. Because there's a company like R.O. Polk and Company that has the data that there's 1.2 million customers in the market every month. Mm-hmm. New customers. There's 450,000 data on Experian data or subprime. So with that kind of marketplace, it's like nobody cares about that customer. They just care about rolling the car. There's no interaction like when you go to Canada. There's nothing like when you go to the UK. You know, Central America, when you buy a car there, whether it's Colombia, Costa Rica, Panama, it ain't even about going to the showrooms. The people go to your house. The salespeople go to your house and deliver you the car in your house, and they start building that relationship with you forever. You know, and they're working, these salespeople that work in Central America are doing it 15, 20 years, 25 years. They retire from that. So it's a whole different perspective.
Well, in saying that, and I'll bring it back to a story I remember when I was in the early 80s when I started selling cars. And I went on my first dealer trade to pick up a car at a dealer. And I was representing Jeep at the time because that was the only thing I knew about. I love Jeeps, and why not sell something you love? And so I went to the biggest Jeep dealer, and it was a guy by the name of Bob Bannerman in Toronto, and it was a massive dealership in comparison to most. And when I walked into the dealership and went up to the reception to say I was here to pick up this car, and I had all the paperwork to check, whatever, I noticed one thing. There was only one person's business card on the reception area. And this is in the early 80s. And it was Bob Bannerman's card, his own personal business card. And on his personal business card, he had his home phone number. This was long before cell phones and anything.
Right.
It had his office phone line and his home line. And He basically says, buying a car from me gets you this number, and you can call me at any time.
Right.
And that was my first exposure to what customer retention was all about. And then obviously we all followed in the line of Carl Sewell and Customers for Life and everything else, and we tried building on it. But from that point on, I always had my home number on it. I always had my cellular number on it when cellular phones came out and everything else. And that's what built the actual relationship.
I got names using my cell phone.
Yeah. And I looked upon it is how hard is it to acquire a customer and how hard is it to retain a customer?
Right.
And one of the reasons why I was so successful was that I understood retaining a customer and retaining their satisfaction would build out referrals. And in the simple math, if you get one referral per one customer that you have per year, just one, not one every quarter, one every month, you say, I want to treat you so well that I'm going to get one customer from you a year. One person that you're going to say, hey, Pete's the best person I've ever dealt with buying a car. You know, and at the end of 3 years, based on the national averages, you will be selling 45 cars a month organically.
Right.
From 10 cars to 45 at the end of 3 years. And that's just working those people correctly. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have in this industry is that we have people out there going, No. You have to make this amount of activity and this amount of activity, and they don't look at the retention over
We
acquisition.
froze.
Yeah.
No, you're there.
Yeah,
Yeah, very true.
You know, Peter, I'm going to say something, if I may.
Sure.
When you go to a showroom, I've been in the car business a long time, like yourself. There used to be a time where you were prospecting. You would go to a restaurant and you would give your business card. Say, somebody from this restaurant went to my store looking for a car. You would go to the cleaners. You would go that. That doesn't happen no more. That's been out for 20 years. This is what happens. The salesman is standing in his desk or outside and saying, there's no traffic, there's no ups, there's nobody being proactive. Okay. When I was in sales and my brother was in sales also, he's retired now. We used to go every morning with the service manager. Who do you have picking up cars today with an RO over $500 or $600? Because back then $500 or $600 was $1,200 today, right? Who do you have? We used to get a list. That list, when we got that list in the morning, we used to launch it out and we used to call up the customer and tell them, Mr. Jones, the car that you have in service, we operate here on a wish list. I have that car with 3 customers that want to buy it. Would you entertain the idea or at least think about you trading in that vehicle or us buying that vehicle straight up from you? You plant the seed. There's none of that no more. None of that. CDPs, all these things that are going on with all these, everybody's talking about it. Listen, you want to start retaining customers? All you got to do is get 9 feature vehicles, put a flyer in the service department every morning, put 100 flyers in, all those flyers will disappear. Okay. And then you start working your salespeople before this technology, CDPs and all that stuff. Put the salesperson to work being proactive. So that way, when that CDP's launch and all that, everybody's taking it seriously. I mean, it's so simple to retain customers like we used to do it. I mean, that's all you got to do. 10 feature vehicles, 5 feature vehicles with a big burst one. Vehicle must go, or whatever you want to market, however you want to do it, put it in the service department because you get a lot of traffic there. All you got to do is grab that traffic to the showroom, just of somebody that might be just plant the seed like stockbrokers do, interested. That's all you got to do.
Here's the first thing with doing something like that. They've already bought from you, or they bought the brand from someone else. Right. So they're already with the brand. So half the battle is already taken. If you can give them a solution that makes financial sense to them, they will move forward with it at all times. They understand the value in the car.
Correct.
They're not at the dealership to restrict their spending on the vehicle. They know that the dealership is a more expensive place to service their vehicle. They're investing in that vehicle. So you have the mindset with them already that if you talk to them at an equal level, not control them, just inform them of what the benefits of moving forward at any given time is great. Like you have new technology out there. Trade Pending has great technology now.
Yes, they do.
Where they are sending a monthly message to a consumer of what their car is available to be sold right now, right then, every single month. So that consumer knows exactly when the price tag is coming in on their vehicle to make it a viable source to sell. I was just on a call with Ford Direct today, and I represent a company called Decoso, and it's right above my head. We do digital price tags for vehicles. So the price tags, the addendums are all on Kindle readers in the windshields of every single car, controlled by a centralized location. So if you have a group like,
wow.
say, Napleton, that has 59 dealerships, they can control every price on every single car from one computer right across the nation.
Wow.
And
That's
these things are coming to this marketplace where the dealers are not capable of understanding what the new challenges are going to be, because if they're not on the boat, they're going to be swimming with the sharks, and they're it's going to become chum and bait, and that's it. So they have to start recognizing it. And I was actually just asked by a company, funny enough, from London, England, to do a design study for the automotive industry out of a university in Canada for the US market, using doing AI, data analytics, and digital retailing. They want to focus on that and dive into it at both feet into the pool, because that's where the changes are coming in this industry. There are subcategories for all that, with vehicle acquisition and client acquisition and retention and CSI, DX, GX, and every other X acronym out there. But they're all out there. It's significant. And how do we change this marketplace? And one of the things that you and I spoke of on our initial call, Lee, was remove the 30-day cycle. Get rid of it. Does Apple have a 30-day cycle?
No.
Does Best Buy, does any of the big major retailers, do they have 30-day cycles? No. They have quarterly and annuals. They might have internal 30-day cycles, but they're not. The consumer knows that it doesn't exist.
Right.
They can bonus people on 30-day cycles. They can do all kinds of different things, but it's not based on a 30-day cycle. Every dealer group that I've ever run or been involved with, I've removed the 30-day cycle and had a minimum of 4x return on it.
Wow.
Because the stress is removed. And that's the biggest thing with car sales, or even servicing. You remove the stress to the consumer, and they will become more comfortable with you and trust you greater. When you say, "Oh, it's the last day of the month," yeah, okay, but the price is going to be the same to you next month, the month after, and the month after that, unless the manufacturer offers a different incentive.
Right.
So you can buy it this week, next week. We're not here to push you. We're here to provide you with the best possible service. And that when people switch from price to value.
I would imagine bringing this mentality to the States, you must get a lot of pushback.
Oh, it's massive on the pushback. It's like everything that, and this is the challenge that I face. First of all, when I compare Canada versus US, they say, well, it's different in Canada, and Richie will say it is, and I'll say it is, and you might say it is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we have 2.5 to 2.7 times the amount of franchises versus the United States. So we live in a more competitive market. We have less car salesmen per dealership than any on a comparative scale. In the U.S., you sell 9.7 cars per salesperson versus our 13.6. So we're well over 35% more per person. We also operate on a level, your leasing penetration in the States is 24.8% on a national average. In Canada, if it dips below 70, it's a national emergency. It's a national emergency. Something's going wrong. The economics of the country, there's a challenge. It becomes a national emergency. We typically operate in the high 70s to low 80s in penetration and leasing.
Wow.
what does that do? What do all those numbers create? Well, every single one of those numbers leads to retention.
Right.
Every single one of them. And we don't look at acquisition because acquisition is just throwing money out of the window. The average cost of acquisition today, depending on the dealer, depending on the brand, can be anywhere from $800 to $1,400 per unit.
Here's the problem with that. The problem in the U.S. is they're all focusing on that. Why? Because you got companies out here hitting dealerships up with advertising. They're making the money. I mean, I can mention companies, I'd rather not, major companies that bring in dealers and bring them a budget of 50, 60, 70, 100 grand as a budget on AdWords, on Facebook, and the dealers are going for it because they have a good salesperson, a good presentation. They're showing them, but they're showing them national figures, not local market, right? When you show what my local market is doing, I should not be spending that. I should be focusing on retention. These companies are just hitting dealers for more. And at the end of the day, they're making all this money on co-op and everything. And the dealership's financial statements in the U.S. on an average, they're losing money.
Yeah, well, they've moved. The challenge with the pandemic is, and this anomaly happened, and we have to deal with it. But in 2019, dealerships hit record numbers. They were at record numbers, record profits. 2020, they dipped, and then they came up to being at the same profitability with less volume. And then 21, 22 went through the roof. Like, this exploded. It was like it was a rocket ship. And then in 23, when inventories came back, they started losing their profitability, but they were still above 19 numbers. 24, they were still above 19 numbers, but they lost 25% year over year from the year previous. It's now flatlined, so they are still more profitable than 2019, but what they're saying is the sky is falling. The sky is falling. Everything's going down. We're on a downward trend. We have to cut. This is why we see all the green pucks on LinkedIn, because they're blaming it on their leaders, and they're removing them from the positions. And we see this in droves in February and March, because that's your first 90 days. You said you could take care of this. Well, we got rid of the last guy in December. We hired you in January. You said you can take care of this. You didn't, so you're gone. They hired the next person. By the time June rolls around, they can't afford to bring in a third person. So they roll that person out to November, December, and then they get rid of them. And then the pucks start showing up again. We are just a turnstile of people, and we're putting out unreasonable expectations, and we're treating our business like the car lot, not as $1 million or multi-million-dollar business. When you talk a dealership like Al Hendricks or Bozard or any of these large dealerships that will turn $1 billion in revenue, $1 billion with a B, we don't treat them like businesses. We're still treating them like car lots, and we don't have. Again, back from Europe, we operated on the ISO standards. To actually understand the operation, we had to be ISO certified, and that was you don't have that in North America. You don't have it in Canada. You don't have it in the United States, where we had 14 4-inch thick binders telling us every single operation from a question, where it led to, and who was responsible, and who was accountable for it. It's not that way here. We just fly by the seat of our pants, and that, hey, you know what? It worked for the last 100 years. It's not working now, and that's
what happened was, while COVID, there was something called supply and demand. That's pretty easy, right?
Yep.
When there's supply and demand, you're an order taker. What's happening now is the consumer's in demand, okay? A whole different animal. I mean, with COVID, they should be embarrassed that they did those numbers. If it'd be another country, they would have really rocked it out, right? So when supply is in demand, their order takers like in the 80s, 83, 86, when Honda was really high. You were selling Honda for $10,000 over list, okay? CRX, you couldn't get it. You were doing 12, 13, 14,000 back then in the Reagan years. That's what you were doing. So supply is in demand, guys. So now they're rocking, right? But when that, like every dealership, it always happens to them when that supply is not in demand and the customer's in demand because they are terrible at doing that, it's over. Then the collateral, which is the cars, start aging. And when that starts aging, all hell breaks loose because there's a depreciation value. We're in the car business where we have collateral, okay? If you're not flipping the cars, good luck. And then this car here, I'm going to lose 2,000. It's been here 200 days. I can flip this and replace it and make a profit of 7,000 because the money is made on the buy, not the sale. You see, it's a mindset thing. That's the problem. That is the problem.
Absolutely.
And they don't know how to do that. I can show you store after store, their inventory, that if they would be really paying attention, okay, they would be flipping it, losing money, and replacing that vehicle because when they replace that vehicle, they're going to earn just by replacing it. Even if they lose 3,000, right? They're not flipping the inventory. And I can show you the feed. I can send you a report right now of top order groups and show you what they're holding the vehicles only because supply is not in demand, customers in demand, and that's a red zone for them because they have no idea how to do that. And now CDP comes in. This comes in, and CDP's been around for a long time. Now it comes into the car business, email marketing, email funnels, SMS. It's like, yeah, because a dealer does not know how to handle when the consumer is in demand. They have no idea. This is how they handle it, right? They react and they call companies, and here's more money on it, and here's more and more. They're already running out of the co-op. They're blowing through the co-op in no time. Usually everybody holds a little bit of co-op for the holidays to blow it out. This year, that didn't happen because they're overspending, and diminishing returns are happening in a very big way. So dealers are not paying attention. Now, of course, while COVID, supply is in demand. Who can't sell like that? Anybody could try it when supply is not in demand and flip it on them. Do the flip. They're no good playing chess. You know that, Peter.
No.
They're really not good at that.
So I had Grant Cardone on one of my calls a while back, and we talked the car business, and he said, "Why do you want to be in the car business? Because when things are good, dealers don't want you. And when things are bad, dealers can't afford you. And there is only a small percentage of time where you're actually valuable to the dealer in their mind, not in actual reality. So it's a hard sell. Well, it's the same thing as you talk about the supply and people changing the sales process. Well, the sales process should never change.
Right.
It should never change. If you look at the fluctuation in Canada versus the United States in sales, we don't see it. We don't see it in interest rate changes. We don't see it in anything. It's on a steady trajectory of about 4% growth, 5% growth throughout the term. The challenge that the U.S. is facing, again, is that turnover is driving intention and reactions. And that turnover is when we put an expectation and we put an unreasonable expectation. Okay, Lee, I'm going to hire you as my pre-owned sales director. I have my budget is that the manufacturer says I need to sell 50% of my new cars sale rate. So on that, you have to sell 600 cars a month or 400 cars a month.
Mhm.
And you come back to me and you say, hey, you know what? I can do it because I have the experience of doing it. Well, you come in and you go into our processes and our theories and our operating and everything else. And as Richie said, blow out the car that is stagnant and get fresh cars in, take the loss. Well, there's only so many times that a stakeholder is going to accept that loss before. Sorry, Lee, you might be getting close to the numbers and cleaning out the inventory and making it run properly, but I can't take any more losses. All you've done is give me losses. Where's the wins?
Right.
Now, when Richie and I got into this industry, turning the inventory was basically, we wanted a great dealership turn their inventory at 6 times a year. Then that became 8 times, then 10, then 12. Just prior to COVID, it was a great dealership was at 14 times. Now, a great dealership is turning their inventory 24 times a year. That is a used car inventory, not a new car inventory. I'm talking used car. 24. That means the average time from purchase to sale is 14 days.
Wow.
So if you don't have a plan or a process in place and you're not looking at that, you're not focusing on that, and more importantly, to turn an inventory at 14 days, you have to have an acquisition plan in place that is so incredible that you're pulling from 7 different acquisition channels. And most people could, if I went into any dealership, I guarantee I would walk out with 4 acquisition channels.
Wow.
There's 7. And most dealerships will go, well, we're doing 45-day turns. Well, at 34 days, you're losing money even if you have a profit. Even if you have a profit on that car, you've lost money on the car. Mm-hmm. And most dealers don't recognize that because they're not doing the math. They're not doing the analytics. They're not doing the data science behind it. I was at Used Cars Palooza in Chicago this year, which was put on by Cars and Lot Pop. It was one of the most eye-opening events that I've ever been at to show the operational structure of a great system. And and I had this conversation with a dealer in Georgia. I said, if I sell a car every 14 days at $1,000 profit, and I sell a car every 30 days at $2,000 profit, where do I make the most money? And the dealer says, oh, well, obviously it's at they're equal. I said, no, it's not a trick question. It's not, because your carrying costs are lower, your turn rate is higher, your service rate is higher, your packs, your this, they all factor in. You make 3 times the amount of money at a lower rate of profitability.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it took until you actually put it out on a spreadsheet for them to understand it. And that's the challenge that we face.
The risk is less.
Yes.
Okay, because when you sit with a car, let's say you make $4,000. Okay, the longer that car sits without that, the more problems, because you're dealing with selling machines. Okay.
Yes.
Today you got a gazillion of sensors. Today you got all kinds of problems, right, with cars. The longer they sit, the more of a problem it becomes. Now you've taken a higher risk, right, by you holding that vehicle. You can't hold vehicles If you look at new car franchises, I have the data, and I'll be more than happy to send it to you. In the whole United States, you'd be surprised what the average used car ages. You would be surprised. If I bring in new car franchises and the used car pre-owned, forget it, it's much higher. But you would fall off your chair, okay? And you would say, wow, I didn't think it was that bad. I have the feed. And that is every day.
I have a funny story to that. I worked for a Subaru dealership in the year 2000. Okay. When I went to work for him, he had cars in stock that were over 3 years old, used cars. And I said, we have to get rid of them. They're costing you money. No, I paid cash for them. So I don't worry about it. And I said, they're costing you money. It's 2025. I was at his dealership 3 weeks ago. I spotted 3 cars there that I saw in 2000.
Right.
25 years in stock.
Because there's an accounting process called LIFO. Okay? In dealerships in the United States. That's depreciation, and then that's write down. So you know what they do? They write it down because they get a break on it, right? And it's a mental thing, okay? It's okay, I gotta write down the whole thing. Come December, the accountant, here's my journal, this, that, I wanna write down the lot, boom, boom, boom. They write it down, and they think that's a profit. That's what it is. It's called LIFO, the accounting process, right there. I went to NADA Academy, so I'm well aware of that. And that's what it is. This is why they keep cars in the United States forever. When you go to another part of the world, you see a whole different perspective.
Exactly.
Right? It's all because of the tax. It's all because of this. It's all because of I have a way of beating the government. It's all about that. But you're getting educated on how to manage your business the wrong way. Okay?
Exactly.
That's what it is. And if you look up the term LIFO, that's what it is. And that's why they keep those vehicles forever, because they know as much as you do and as much as I do what the right thing is. They know that by selling this car, right, they get rid of it. And now they buy the next car, and they know that the sale is made in Dubai, not the sale guys.
And when we look at that, how does that impact our customer experience?
Terrible.
How does that impact? Like, if I pull into a lot, and I pull into the lot every 6 months for my oil change, because I'm a religious servicer of my vehicles, I pull in every 6 months, and I see the same car, and I know it's the same car for 3 years or 4 years. What do I think about the dealer?
Right, that dealership is done. Right.
And what do I think about that dealer? I think that dealer has a challenge. So when I look at that and I go, how does this happen? How does this operate? How do people think this is acceptable? Because they operate it like the car lot, not as a business.
Right.
And that's the biggest challenge, because they're not looking at their teams properly. They're not looking at their pay plans properly. They're not looking at their customers properly. They're not, and I get the pushback all the time from dealers. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Okay, great. Let me ask you this, and this is a very simple one. I got asked by a BMW dealership in Pittsburgh. We need to implement AI into our BDC. Okay, great. I called the BDC at 5 minutes before they opened. And I said, okay, I'm interested in this vehicle. Okay, someone will get back to you. They sent me a video saying someone will get back to me. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, great. 20 minutes after they opened, I get an email saying, we got your information. It was a canned email with different fonts, so I knew it was cut and paste.
Right.
5 hours later, they called me. I had a conversation with them. I said, am I going to be speaking with you or someone else? They said, oh, a salesperson will contact you. Salesperson contacts me. I said, I'm a cash buyer. I want to buy the car today.
Right.
I don't want to finance it. I want to buy it today. I just want to make sure this is the right car. And can you send me the bill sheet? Yep. Send me a bill sheet with an addendum on it. So call them back and say, do I have to take all these things? No, we just include it. Okay, great. Send me one without it on it. Never did. I was a cash buyer. I had a meeting 2 weeks later with the GM and the GSM, and they said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I think your processes are broken.
Right.
It's not your BDC. It's not AI. It's not nothing. It's your stakeholders. They're not doing it. And, 9 weeks later, the guy called me back and said, are you still in the market? I said I was a cash buyer that day. No one listens. Wow. That is the problem. That's the problem. We're not implementing the strategies for dealerships. And that's the major thing. But no one's taking accountability for their actions. The stakeholders are not taking accountability. The leadership's not taking accountability. The sales teams are not taking accountability. Nobody is. And so when I say that this happens, they say, not in my store. I said, what's your phone number? I'll tell you it is.
Yeah. That's the way of the world. We are gonna have to wrap up in just a couple of minutes here. I think you have so much information in that head of yours that we're gonna have to do a 3-parter on this.
Yeah, no worries. I'm available at any time. But
we'd love to have you back on the show. And definitely the Lion Partnership sounds like they have very untraditional for the States methods, and I would hope that dealers would quit the pushback and roll with it.
I was talking to a good friend who's considered a titan of this industry, and we were talking about how the industry is built on dinosaurs, and the statement came up that the dinosaurs aren't aware that the meteor has hit the earth.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to change, and it's going to change dramatically. Those that have become aware have adopted and are changing right now. So that is my one bit of advice. You cannot grow if you remain in the same receptacle that you were delivered in.
Awesome. Lion Partnership, check them out. Before we wrap, I just want to mention once again, I know I've been doing this every week, but Let Data Take the Wheel. It's on Amazon. It's Richie's 4th book. And most important thing about this to myself is that Stop Soldier Suicide is the only national nonprofit focused solely on solving the issue of suicide in among U.S. military veterans and service members. I would bet everyone has heard of someone that committed suicide coming out of the military. And all the profit from this book is going directly to Stop Soldier Suicide. So check it out. It's loaded with information on data and the changing industry. And that's all I got today. Peter, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Extremely interesting information and the concepts coming out of Lion Partnership sound pretty cool to me. I would love to see more of that here, especially where I am on Long Island.
Absolutely.
And Richie, as always, thank you for having me by your side.
Peter, thanks a lot. Great information. And let's set up soon another podcast, because you are so valuable for the industry here in the U.S. that every dealership should have you, just for you to go in there and pay attention to the vendors and what they're spending. And let's stop this crazy thing with acquisitions where everybody's focusing on, and let's focus on retention. Peter, great speaking to you. Love what you got.
Thank you. And I look forward to our next time on air and our next conversations that we have. And I'll be ordering a book on Amazon today to support the foundation.
Oh, it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless and have a lovely day. Take care.
All right. You take care, and we'll see you soon.